Hi everyone, welcome to Artabilities. This is the winter session, which is going to be completely online. My name's Emily, and I will be guiding you through all 6 weeks of the session. I'm really looking forward to it, and I hope you are too. So let's begin by looking at our materials. So grab your bags. It should say week 1 and 2 on it, and we're going to take a look and make sure we have everything we need before we begin. So in our supplies, we've got both weeks, 1 and 2 in there. The only items we won't need this week from the bag are this roll of paper, so you can set that aside and save it. And then there's a little bag that's marked week 2 with a couple markers in it. So you're just going to set those two aside, and we're going to do that next week. But the items we will be using this week are, you'll see 3 things of tissue paper, all blue. This really cool painting kit. I love all the colors in it. And then we've got paint brushes. You've got a plastic cup, which we'll be using all session, so hang on to that. Should be a little wooden sun. A little bowl, and then a bottle of glue. And then one thing that couldn't fit in the bag was a piece of cardboard. Let me grab that now. So it should look like this. It's just a long flat piece of cardboard. You should have gotten 2 of them. This week we're just going to be using 1. And then there's going to be a couple things you're going to need from your house. So if you can find a pencil, and also we're going to need some sort of straight edge because we're going to be drawing a straight line. So if you have a paper bag, you can just use this, or if you have a ruler or a book. So grab something that has a straight edge. And then we want to cover our surface before we work on it because we will be using paint. So again, paper bags are great. So I just put a bunch of paper bags down to protect my surface. And then if you want to wear something over your clothes to protect your clothes, like an apron, that's a good idea. You can also put on gloves if you want. But we're just going to be painting, so it'll be a little messy, but everything is washable. So the first thing you're going to need to do is grab all your stuff, get your space set up so you can get a little messy, and then fill up your cup with some water because we're going to need that. All right, then I will see you at the first step. All right, for step 1, we're going to grab our cardboard, and your first decision is if you want your piece to go vertically or horizontally. We are making a landscape, so it's going to be a nice peaceful landscape with beautiful sunset and water, and then we have our little sun. So you can decide if you'd like it to be tall or wide. I think I'm going to make mine tall. So then once you make that decision for step 1, we're going to draw a horizon line. So if you're doing it vertically, you're going to grab your straight edge and your pencil, and then we are going to draw our horizon. So the painting box that the paints came in is actually pretty good edge. So I'm just gonna place it against the side here. So the sides are lining up, and then that'll give us a nice straight line. So I'm just gonna take my pencil and just lightly go across here. Doesn't have to be perfect. There we go. So you probably can't see the line, but we've got a nice little line. about in the middle, but you can make it, you can really go a little lower if you want. It's up to you. All right, so I made mine a little darker so you can see it. So then it's not quite in the middle, it's down a little bit lower. So if you put the sun sort of where it's going to rest on the horizon, you can kind of see what it'll look like. So I think I'm going to have a little bit more sky than water, but you can always do it lower too. All right, so now that we have our horizon, we are ready for step 2. But before we go there, if you wanted to do the horizon horizontally, it's the same thing. You just need a longer straight edge to draw that line. All right, let's move on to step 2. For step 2, we're going to need our paint kit. I'm going to grab yellow, light orange. You can do a red or a pink, and a light blue, and a darker blue. So you can pick different colors if you want. So the sky is sort of what you want it to look like. We get to be creative today. So I was thinking of sunset colors. So I kind of like the idea of just doing the classic, yellow, orange, red. It's probably hard to see those. Yellow, orange, red, blue. You could even add a little purple. So we're going to need paints, and then we're going to need your glass of water, your paint brushes, and some paper towels. So let's get started with our sky. All right, let's begin with the orange. So I got my orange open, and I'm gonna take my brush. It's one of the bigger brushes, but you can take whatever brush you like, and I'm just gonna dip it directly into, well, actually, I'll just use the lid first. So I'll just take a little bit of the paint, and I'm gonna start at the horizon line. So we're gonna go up. So my sky is above the horizon line here. So I'm gonna start kind of at the middle and just begin painting. So we might need to do a couple coats, or maybe do it kind of thick because the paint is a little transparent, but you can start to see the orange showing up. So just being really careful along that line so we're not going below it. And really trying to fill up that bottom section. So I got all the paint, most of the paint out of the lid, so now I can dip directly into the container. So I'm just making little brush strokes, trying to get the paint off, spreading it out nice and thickly, all the way up to the edge. You can kind of chunk it on in spots too. So if I just go smooth like that, makes it a little more see-through. So if you want to see more of the color, you can just do like little chunks. There we go. So you're not spreading it out all the way. So I'm going to keep going with this. You can put orange wherever you want it in the sky. It's usually kind of low to the horizon by where the sun is setting. But you might see little spots of orange up a little higher in the sky. as the sunset gets really cool. So you can find a few spots where you're like, oh, I just want a little orange here, and then leave a little orange there. But I'm going to have my thickest band of orange just kind of at the bottom here. So about 4 fingers tall from the horizon line, I'm going to do orange. And once you think you've got enough orange, you're gonna take your brush and place it in your cup. And we're just gonna bounce it off the bottom of the glass to clean your brush. So clean it really well. And then you're gonna dab it on some paper towels. So I still see some orange on there, so I'm gonna put it back in the water and really bounce it off the bottom. Okay, and I'm going to dab it again. And now I can see the brush is clean. It's not leaving any orange spots on the paper towel. So then we can move on to our next color. All right, I've placed the lid back on my orange container and set it aside. I've got my red paint open now, and my brush is clean. So that's very important. So again, I'm going to start by taking paint out of the lid with that same brush. So it's like one of the larger brushes in the pack there. And I'm going to start above where we had the orange, where the orange left off. So I'm just going to kind of do little strokes here. As you can see the red a lot more than the orange. So I'm even kind of blending it into the orange a little bit, letting my brush get dry. And just spreading it out. So we're getting some cool red there. So just a little dip in the red and then finding an open spot. And I'm just working it back and forth kind of around the orange. And above it. And wherever you want the red. So I'm kind of working around the little orange spots that I created. Almost like you're coloring with a marker, but just going back and forth and letting that dry out a little bit. And I'm kind of pressing down and letting it spread. There we go. So it almost sounds like a dry marker. Okay, and then I'm going to add a little more paint to my brush and keep going. So yeah, you just want to keep mixing it around. So some parts will have more paint than others, so that we've got a little bit of a variation in color. So some spots will look really red and some will look a little more faded. And that is just like a sky, just like a sunset. We want a little variation and making sure you get up to the edge of your cardboard. And we're coming up a bit higher. So there's still some cardboard left for the other colors. All right, I used all the paint in my lid, so now I'm going to dip directly from the container. So now I'm going back in where I had the dry brush and I'm just adding a little more paint in some areas so it's kind of splotchy. So we don't need it to be like a smooth, perfect coat. So then it looks a little bit more real, a little more like a sky if it's sort of kind of patchy. There we go. And when you're happy with your red, then I'm going to have you close your paint. So put the lid back on your paint and then clean your brush. Again, just dipping it in the water and cleaning off your brush, getting ready for that next color. The next color after red is purple. So I'm going to take the lid off and then find that same brush we've been using, nice and clean, and we're going to start digging into that lid paint first. And then I'm just going to come in above the red. And this one is a little bit more transparent again, like the orange. So we might need to make that one a little bit thicker. So I'm just kind of spreading it out, figure out where I want it. So it doesn't need to be a straight line across. We're kind of coming up and down, making little sort of cloudy shapes. And make sure you come all the way to the side edges here. Okay, I used all the paint in the lid. Now I'm gonna dip into the container. I'm laying it on a little bit thicker now. And then I'm gonna kind of come down into the red just a little bit so it looks like the red and the purple aren't just two separate sheets, like they're kind of making a little zigzag line. Just see if you can see that a little bit better. There you go. Just kind of coming down so you see a little red in between the purple. Here we go. All the way up to the top here. And you can really put your colors wherever you want. This is just sort of an example. Feel free to play a little bit. If you want to put a little bit of purple down a little lower, you can do that. It's like a little line. A little bit less down here. And then mirror it maybe on the other side. And once you're happy with your purple, we're gonna clean our brush and put our lid back on the paint and get ready for our next step. The last color we're adding to our sky is going to be this lighter blue. So got it open. And again, I'm going to take paint from the lid first. And this time I'm going to use a slightly smaller brush. So it's sort of a little rounded edge and it's a little bit smaller than the other one we've been using. So what I want to do is sort of find little places for blue sky to be peeking through. So I'm going to kind of come around where I see two colors together, like the red and the orange. And I'm just going to add a little bit of blue sky peeking through. I'm going to come to the horizon line. Just do a little bit of blue. This one's going to be kind of spotty. So you want to do kind of on both sides, finding where those other colors meet. The orange and the red and the purple. You can have little bits of blue, making these chunky lines. Peeking through. I have a little bit of a chunk over here. Again, staying above that horizon line. Just kind of dabbing my brush. And then just kind of dragging it. Make a little bit of a streak here. Streak and splots. So it's a little messy, and that's okay. Now I'm going to come into the red area. I want to come by where this red and purple and orange are. Just make a little bit of a blue area. So I'm leaving this a little bit chunkier because the paint is lighter and it's a little transparent. So I'm just making a little line here. So it's just little places where that blue is peeking out. You can kind of go intuitively here, say, you know, where do I want some blue? Where do I want some lighter color? And then just following your instincts, following your artist intuition. So everyone's got some, and there's no wrong answers here. Just bringing in some blue. So I felt the need to kind of spread this one out here and let my brush kind of be dry as I'm dragging it. There we go. So sometimes the colors will mix a little bit. That just gives a little more variation, which makes the sky look more believable. I keep dipping back into my paint. Whenever I need a little bit more color. All right, and then whenever you feel satisfied with your sky, you can move on to the next step. But remember, again, to clean your brush and put your lid back on your container. We're now moving on to step 3. So you can set aside your sky and let it dry. Just gonna set it aside so we have a little more room. Now we're going to need our little wood cutout sun and then the color yellow. And then I also grabbed a paper towel. So I'm going to be placing my sun on the paper towel to paint it. All right, so let's get painting. Here's my setup with my table covering, paper towel, and then we've got our wooden sun. You can paint either side, doesn't matter. I'm gonna open up the yellow, and then I chose a smaller brush, but you can pick whatever brush you're comfortable with, and we're just gonna paint the whole thing yellow. So I'm starting with the paint in the lid again. and painting the whole thing. So make sure you get all the little spikes, and you might want to do more than one coat depending on how yellow you want it to be. Feel free to pause the video and finish your painting at your own pace. All right, on to step 4. We're going to need our bowl and our glue, a paintbrush, and some water. So while we let our little wooden sun dry and our sky dry, we're going to be mixing glue and water in kind of equal parts. So I will switch over to the other view so you can see what I'm doing. Open up your glue, and then just gonna pour in a good amount here. So there we go. So just about coats the bottom. Let's start with that. And then I'm just gonna add a little bit of water to start. And taking one of my larger brushes, I'm just gonna start mixing it with the water. So giving it a good stir. You want it to be a smooth consistency. So really just swirling it around until it's sort of milky. There we go. So I'm gonna add even just a little bit more water here. Just a little, just doing a little bit at a time. If you add too much water at once, it's gonna be hard to mix them together. There we go. That's looking pretty good. So it's kind of drippy. You can see how it moves. It does look a bit like milk. So we want more of a milk consistency than say like a yogurt. There we go. So that's just about right. For step 5, we'll need our cardboard, our watered down glue, and the tissue paper. So we're going to begin with the darker blue, or the darkest blue. I'm just going to tear it into pieces and then set them in a little pile right next to your piece. There we go. All right, so I'm gonna start with the darker color. I'm gonna put it by the horizon line because it's darker farther away from us. So this is gonna make it look kind of cool. So I'll start with adding some glue, just painting it on right underneath our horizon line. Get it nice and wet. And then I'm gonna try to match my a flat edge right up against the horizon line. And then just pressing it down a little bit. And I'm gonna go all the way across that top, across that horizon line, just beneath it with a straight edge. It's okay if it's not perfect. Let's see, I'll find one more straight edge here. I'm gonna go all the way up here. There we go. So it's not sticking everywhere. So now that I kind of have it sitting where I want it, I'm gonna go over the top of all of this tissue paper. I'm gonna saturate it with our watered down glue. So I'm just gonna paint it and then it's going to soak through. There we go. I'm going to get all the entire thing here, that entire sheet that you put down. Want that saturated with glue. All right, and then moving down, I'm going to go to the next, to mid-tone blue. So not the lightest yet. We're going to go with the mid-tone blue. I'm going to tear up some sheets, tear up some smaller pieces, and then just start to add glue to this middle section here. And you can pause the video at any time if you need to go a little slower than me. I'm going a little bit fast just to be able to show you everything. And then again, we're just laying down that next color of blue right in the middle. There we go. I'm gonna add a little more of the dark blue here. And that first little bit of glue just gets the tissue paper to stick. And then we're going to add glue on top of the tissue paper, really saturated. It's okay if you don't get all of it. There might be little pieces sticking up a little, and that's fine. It gives it a little more kind of cool texture. All right, so then we're just going to keep working, adding more pieces wherever you want them, but generally keeping the darkest tissue paper in this area kind of closer to the horizon line. That middle tone is going to be a little bit more here in the middle, and you can make it a little bit choppy, kind of chunky little pieces here so that dark blue is showing through. And then the last one, we're going to do that lighter blue tissue paper down here. So go ahead and work on it. You can pause the video and we're going to work on it and place your pieces. As we're moving on to that last section, just make sure you get all the way up to the edge with that light blue. It's okay if you go over the edge. You can always fold it onto itself. So like right here, I'm over the edge. So once I add some glue here, I can just fold this onto itself here. So and you just keep laying down the glue on all the cardboard spots that are left. And then adding that light blue tissue paper. And then once they're down, painting the glue on top. So you might notice that your cardboard is buckling a little bit. That's normal, just because of the moisture. And you can also tear little pieces and just kind of put them in that middle section too, just to make it look like little foamy waves. Just tiny little pieces, kind of close to that section down here, close to the lighter section, or the lightest section. Here we go. And then painting over them. There we go. And when you're done, you want to put your brush in the glass of water and clean that out. So I'm pressing it again, or bouncing it against the bottom, so that we don't have glue hardened brush. Once you're done with all of your tissue paper, we've got the water, we've got the sky, all we need left is the sun. So this is our final step, step 6. You're going to need your glue bottle and your sun. So first we want to see where we're going to place it. Want it right on, like right on the horizon line there. So if you have a little space between it, it'll look kind of silly, which is okay. It's okay to be silly, but we want to try to get it right so it's like resting on the water. So I like mine in the middle. You can play around with having it over to the side or other side. Once you figure out where you want it, you can open up your glue and then put a nice healthy amount of glue on the sun. I just glued this part. I didn't do the little arms. So you can hang on to the arms without getting glued on. And then I'm gonna place it down and give it a good press. There we go. And then it all just needs to dry. And then we're all done. We've got our beautiful landscape picture.